Red 2 standing by, all for lit and in the green. Welcome back to Metroid Prime. I know we're not quite in Phendrana Drifts, but do you remember how I said we could go and get another artifact? Jump all the way up here and we'll be able to, or at least get to the path. Rightio, so our suspension bridge is functional, and we reveal a standard spinner device when we scan this. The generator belts of the spinner can be activated by rapid rotational force. Use the boost ability of the morph ball when inside a spinner to activate the device. So set ourselves in there. And there we are. That is locked in place for now. And we can stick the landing. Having the space jump does make movement a lot easier, and we can get across those pesky lava pits with greater ease, but still be careful. Head on into here. We will note, if we get our scan visor out, Bendesium portion of area unstable, so we'll need the power bombs. But there we are, we have acquired the Artifact of Strength, the second of 12. And there we go. Not too shabby too already, and artifact detail will be filled in as needed. Thank you, that would have been a little bit awkward. Now let's see. I can stick it to here. Let's get back down. That was a bit more stylish than I thought it was going to be. I had visions of that ending in disaster, but not bad at all. Now we can go to Phendrana Drifts and use our double jump to access the next area. Fire and ice areas are fairly common with a lot of games. They did very well mixing them with Hailfire Peaks in Banjo-Tooie, and if you play the music together, creates a really, really beautiful sound. I mean, this probably has some of the best music for an ice area, hands down. It's very beautiful, a little melancholy, and really well designed. We can use the plasma beam to shatter that, by the way. It's just perfect for exploration. There's often standard instrumentation, it seems, that will wind up going with ice levels. More jolly ones might have sort of Christmas-themed instrumentation like sleigh bells and things like that, but there'll usually be some sort of high percussion along the way. Now we stick it down here. And we can enter the temple here. Nothing fancy to worry about, but we do need to access certain power conduits later on. To avoid the bomber, use missiles to shatter that. And of course, you can also wait with the boost ball, because we will be needing to go through here to get some new equipment. A little quicker than I thought. And there we go. This is the Chozo Ice Temple. We have a bit of work to do to scale this, and we'll find a couple of new scans along the way too. For example, the enemy wandering around here. This is the Ice Parasite, scavenger with a crystalline outer shell. Parasites are hardy creatures able to adapt to any environment within 3 generations. The Ice Parasite is a prime example. Having adjusted to a frigid climate, this vermin now thrives in it. Omnivorous, it can exist in areas hostile to most life forms. Interesting example of pretty much how rapid evolution works, but the funny thing is, we don't actually get to see very many regular parasites on Talon 4 as far as I know. We get those, there are plated parasites I believe, but we don't get to see the regular ones. They're mostly on the Space Pirate frigate. Kind of interesting, but fiddly little details. Anyway, so the standard ice... It's pretty cool that the that waterfall of ice, that what would have been a waterfall, does actually reflect our shots. It's a little unusual, but works out pretty well. So now pay attention to these statues here. Those are actually going to be fairly useful for what we're coming up to. There's a shell of ice here, so we'll need the plasma beam. Like a lot of Chozo statues, pop yourself in the hands and you'll be able to find something. If we scan this... A statue depicting the bust of a Chozo shaman adorns this door. A symbol is carved into its forehead. The translation reads, "To pass my gaze, seek my twin within this room." This is around about where I got up to. So these 4 statues, we have a Chozo warrior, a Chozo philosopher, a Chozo architect, and the last one is a Chozo shaman. It's a brimstone object, so we dish out a missile, jump up, and this unlocks the door. There we are. This will lead us to a fairly important item that will allow us to proceed, because we have the space jump, but also worth noting there was a door in the Ice Ruins West that we could only open with the wave beam. So as you might guess, we're getting the wave beam around this area. We have to roll back up here. Whoops. And we'll be able to do it all again. Patience is the watchword. Now, the wave beam functions differently for those of you who haven't played Metroid Prime but do know how it works in Super Metroid and most other games. I think it just fired in an oscillating pattern in the original Metroid. It had different power-up abilities in Metroid 2, but you could only carry one of those power-ups at the same time, kind of like you could with the original Metroid. That was kind of the problem with the Ice Beam, that you'd wind up just having to take twice as long to kill enemies. In Super Metroid, the Wave Beam would punch through walls. You could get this relatively early on if you had a bit of skill. Once you'd got the Grapple Beam after defeating Crocomire, you could explore Norfair and find it. There were also some fancy wall jumps you could do as well, so if you were pretty quick, you could pull it off. Now, the Plasma Beam could penetrate enemies. The Ice Beam froze things, it always does. But the Wave and Plasma Beams usually work differently in Metroid Prime games compared to how they do in the 2D games like Fusion. Interestingly, you get the Plasma Beam last, that rumbling isn't good by the way, in Super Metroid, but you'll get it earlier in Metroid Fusion. So, we don't get to have the Ice Beam just yet because we have to fight Shegoths. There's another door lock if you haven't scanned it. So, one is down, but we always get another one replacing it. Well, always, when we kill the first two anyway. Get the kill from range, and the buddy is coming in. Try and keep an eye on both of them. Keep both your enemies in your field of vision. And there we are, we've taken those out pretty quickly. That was reasonably efficient if I do say so myself. But now we get the Big Daddy Shegoth, or Big Mummy Shegoth, or really however the Shegoth chooses to think of itself. I mean, when you look like that, when you're that powerful, you can be whatever you damn well please. This is the Shegoth, the supreme predator of the Phendrana Drifts. Shegoths are invulnerable to most beam weapons. The crystals on their back absorb energy which they can fire at prey. Shegoths have poor stamina. They hyperventilate after using their breath attack, making their mouth area vulnerable. The soft underbelly of a Shegoth is susceptible to concussive blasts. In battle, they expel blasts of frigid gas to ensnare their targets. They are also fond of ramming and trampling their hapless prey. So our beam weapon, as you will probably see, is no good. It will be absorbed by those crystals. So we want to slowly chip away at the Shegoth by using missiles. It takes about 17 missiles to put this thing down. So it's kind of a slow and steady fight. If you're patient and you avoid its attacks, you should be alright. Use that newly acquired space jump to avoid its attacks. Get the timing right and you can actually take this thing down reasonably quickly, although that does do a lot of damage if you get cornered by it. Might be a good idea to bait it into attacking. Alright, so we can probably charge up. And finally down. It's mostly just a long and really drawn out fight. We can get some pickups from that. And I got turned around. This is what we're looking for. We have the Wave Beam. Press C right to switch to it and use it to open purple doors. Now the Power Beam has it beaten in terms of rate of fire. And you'll notice those shots oscillate. This can mean that some of them miss their targets at times. But it does have a very nice property in that charged shots will wind up stunning certain enemies. It's actually very convenient like that. So it's going to be a lifesaver in the battles to come. Let's get ourselves sorted out, and you'll notice that we have pulse bombers suddenly appearing. And we get to demonstrate the charged shot. Note that if a target is moving quite quickly, wave beam shots will home in on their target. This is a very useful property. Ooh. Well, I sort of stuck the landing. So you've got a good demonstration of what to do with your wave beam. Move very carefully and take out all the enemies. In fights where you're not facing large groups of enemies, the wave beam is a very good bet to have. But if you want rapid fire to deal with larger groups, then you really do want the power beam. You'll also note that we have Shegoths sticking around as well. However, we don't really need to worry about them too much. Unless, of course, I manage to fall through the smallest possible gap and get right in their path. So we're looking to go back this way because this will lead us up to the path we need to take. We can head this way to the Ice Ruins west. And a few good shots will, of course, take care of those bombers. Now, our best course of action is, of course, sneaking around. Avoid the Shegoths, jump up here, and we'll be able to make it to the upper part of the Ice Ruins. Yeah, those oscillating shots can be a little bit difficult. But once you get used to it, the wave beam is really handy. I think that might actually be a scan. That's really annoying. Thankfully, we do encounter those in other areas. But I'll have to be very, very careful and make sure I don't just blunder on through. Now, over there, these are ice shriek bats, ice-encased ceiling dwellers. Like standard shriek bats, these creatures are easily spotted with thermal imaging. They roost on cave ceilings, subsisting on insects, reptiles, and small mammals. Fiercely territorial, they will dive bomb anything that wanders near. So if we get our targets right, we actually have a much harder time picking them off. Over where that crystallite is, we can get a pick up with the plasma beam, I believe. But we want to move around here, go to where the shriek bats were, and get through this door. We'll also see more scarabs. These are, surprisingly enough, not ice scarabs. They are just scarabs. Fairly standard modus operandi for ice-based levels. Change the color of an enemy and just call it Ice X. It's a bit unimaginative, but I suppose it is an interesting look at how nature really works, that we get to take on different species. And we're pretty much up to where I was last time. So, in this area, we can get ourselves another energy tank. If we're quick, we will have to use the a spinner nearby first. It's just over there. Of course, the water might be a bit too much for us. So always be careful. We can navigate this area with the spider ball. So once we open those, we've got ourselves a little puzzle to undertake. And there we are, another spinner. Activate this if we can please roll into it. I know I'm not great, but handling with this is pretty terrible at times. And our morph ball hatch is... the morph ball slot is open, which will allow us to raise the water level and quickly traverse this area. And I think I jumped into a flicker bat. And I went the wrong way, of course. Not quite, but we'll quickly get up here, get into this, and if we're fast, we can make it down the other end of the area as this part floods, and we can get ourselves an energy tank. So you'll see that little hole in the distance. If we fall into the water, we'll have to do this over again. There we are. Down we go. But from here we can roll our way out very carefully, I might add. And that horrible feeling when trying to correct what you know is going to be a mistake just winds up catapulting you off the edge anyway. Even with just sort of straightforward notches in the controller, it can be a little fiddly doing this, but this is a good point to wrap up because we are actually near a save station. I can check through everything, see if there are pickups we may have missed. And once I've done that, we can proceed in the next episode. I'm surprised I actually caught this up in about the same number of episodes. Up here. And so that wave beam door is where we need to go. This way there is a power conduit, but even though we have the wave beam, we can't energize it. We need to go over there for the save point. And that will wrap things up. Thank you very much for joining me. From pretty much here on out, I'm going to be rusty again. Which is kind of good because I really did want to mess around and see how I was going with a bit of rust. Didn't really lose much in terms of progress, we got here at about the same rate, but until next time, this is Red 2, returning to base.